We are starting our episode 4 of Christopher Owens and Michael Friedman present the Catr and Kenard podcast. The person reading this is the Catr. I am Michael Friedman, also known as Mad Catr. And instead of Christopher Owens, we have a special guest host, and it is Aramide. Say hi, Aramide.
Hello, Aramide, or as you will probably be reading this, A Lord, or I guess that's a more cutesy way to name yourself online. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've been watching every episode of this show. It's so much fun seeing you and Chris interact about so many stuff music related. I've been keeping up with you guys ever since the first episode, and in previous episodes, in fact, there are actually a few comments that I've been leaving around. But all that aside, it's just really cool. Just really cool to be here, and going back to what I was said about looking back at old episodes. I remember in the first episode you mentioned you quite liked Fiona Apple, and you really liked her first album, Title, right?
Yeah, I actually, real quick, I want to bring up something. I usually have something music related, like I wore a hat one time that was an MTV hat. And at one time I wore a shirt. I think this time, real quick, I wanted to start out the show this way. I have a quote, and it's music related, and I have the piece of paper right here, and it's a quote from Henry Rollins, and in the description of the podcast, I'd like to think that every now and then I throw in some life knowledge, and this is just a little. Hopefully, it's an inspirational quote for someone, but it's from Henry Rollins, who I believe was in the band Black Flag, pretty revolutionary band. So he said, "No such thing as spare time. No such thing as free time. No such thing as downtime. All you got is lifetime. Go." So,
if ever there's a quote that reminds me so much of what the energy that Henry Rollins tends to exude. Hey, and let's use that time. Let's use that time right now to really get on to something. Like I said previously, in the first episode, you mentioned quite a lot about your affinity for Fiona Apple, especially her first album, Title, which has her breakthrough single, Criminal. How much do you follow with Fiona Apple's other works?
I have it. I'm familiar that she did a cover song, and I'm kind of a little confused in my brain here with that and where that is. And I use iTunes, and so I'm going to look this up while we are talking, but not really. I've only listened to Title, and I mean, I know of her other CDs, but I only own Title. I know she has her other titles. No, this one is Tidal. That's the confusion that I don't want people to get. It's Tidal, not Title. But the other albums, her titles are very long. And they have like ... on them. And recently I was looking at a magazine, and they had the 10 for the past decade. They had some of their picks for, I guess, their favorite albums from last decade, and so they mentioned one of her albums, I didn't realize it came out in 2003, I think. But I'm trying. There was a
Uh,
movie. There was a movie. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. So it was a soundtrack to the movie called Pleasantville.
oh yes, I know exactly the song you're talking about. It is her cover of Across of the Beatles, Across the Universe.
Yes, yes.
Um, quite a lovely song. And funny enough, I believe the music video ended up being the first music video she did that would be directed by her then boyfriend, Paul Thomas Anderson, who is quite a famous director in his
He
own
does
right.
the quirky movies, doesn't he?
Yeah, you could say that. Say that. Well-known films: Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be
Oh
Blood, The Man.
yeah, right. I was watching a list online about movies where actors broke their typecast, and Adam Sandler, you know, known for all his comedy movies, Waterboy and Little Nicky, and anyway, he did a serious one, and he worked with Paul Thomas Anderson for Punch Drunk Love. I thought Paul Thomas Anderson did what is it called, Moonlight Kingdom? Did he do
No, no,
that?
that's Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson.
Okay.
Easy mistake to make. But yeah, but in speaking about Fiona Apple, I guess I should finally mention that I am lucky enough to own two of her CDs, and one of them, which you were probably talking about, is her sophomore album, When the Pawn. Which I also, if you're looking at this, you also reveal the longer title, but better just to call it Wonder Pawn. And Wonder Pawn was her second album, produced entirely by John Bryan. And
Brion, yeah.
yes, and the interesting thing about this, and also her relationship with Paul Thomas Anderson at the time, and her working with John Bryan, they were all kind of associated with each other at the time. Brian produces this album. At the same time, he's also doing the score for a lot of Paul's movies. I believe he did the score for Magnolia as well as Punch Drunk Love. In fact, their connection is so interesting that I believe Paul Thomas Anderson did admit that at the time when he was writing the script for Magnolia, he would look through some of Fiona's notes that she had written for some songs to get some ideas. Her connection with Paul is and how much of an influence it has on this album is so interesting because I don't know if you can see it, but yes, on the back there you can just see a brief insignia PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson. Um, yeah, and along with that, Paul would also end up directing all the music videos that end up being could be released from this album. Fast as you can, which is a very lovely song, cool music video. But perhaps my absolute favorite song on the album and my favorite music video is Paperback, which was this really cool jazzy song that and the music video is lovely because it's literally her kind of like in this old school diner, and she's swing dancing with these young guys, which plays into a lyric. She says, I thought you were a man, but you were just a little boy. But yeah, I really like when the pawn hits. It's a lovely album. John Bryan, one of the great producers of his time, talented songwriter himself. But John Bryan has since gone on to produce quite a lot of stuff. I mean,
Well,
he was
I want to cut you off here. I did see, I'm looking on iTunes still. He did produce Punch Drunk Love, or he did that album.
yeah. Yes.
and you said Magnolia.
Yes, Magnolia, Magnolia,
Let's see
Magnolia.
who it says.
Yeah. And with Punch Drunk Love, he would end up writing and singing a song for that movie called Here We Go, which is an absolutely lovely song. You know, I've shared it with Chris a few times. Beautiful song, beautiful song. You know,
I
made
was
in
just
a
I was just thinking about this. Magnolia is actually produced by Amy Mann, who was from the '80s group Till Tuesday.
Yes, yes. I believe like I don't know if they were at the time, but um Amy Mann and John Vine were kind of together for a bit, but yeah, just in general, they've been cool people professionally. Funny thing is that Magnolia would end up getting nominated for a whole bunch of Oscars, and one of the Oscars they would get nominated for Best Original Song, the song that Amy Mann would do. That song, if I remember correctly, that song ended up losing to Phil Collins' "You'll Be in My Heart." And speaking of Phil Collins, one of the songs that was so nice to recommend to me was the Genesis song "The Brazilian," which
Oh yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
love that song.
it all connects. It all connects. What do you think of that Genesis song?
Well, I love that song. It's and I do want to say one other thing. John
Mhm.
Bryan is credited with the last song on the soundtrack, Magnolia, and it's called Magnolia.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but the Brazilian, yeah, I, I mean, I like instrumental music. I don't want to say that's the one. When you think of me, you think of that I like instrumental music, but it's one that a genre that I mention a lot. Um, and let me turn my head better. Um, yeah, I like instrumental music, and there's a certain place and time that I remember when I think of that song. So
Mm.
it makes me happy. Um, I don't know. It's kind of a quirky track, but
Right.
I like it. I just like it. It's I there's not a lot of words I can say about it, but um, it's a good song. I just like it. It's a good song. So, what do you
Um,
think?
listen to it. I don't know if I loved it, but I definitely respect it. The interesting thing about the Phil Collins era of Genesis, which is kind of weird to say because Phil Collins was always a member of Genesis, but Phil Collins' era of Genesis often gets criticized for moving away from the progressive rock, from
Yes,
the
a pop,
rock.
more pop. Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like despite that criticism, as you can tell with tracks such as the Brazilian, maybe they still very much were a prog rock band to
Artsy.
some
Yes.
extent. No, maybe not as much as they were during the Peter Gabriel era, but yes, still a good function there. And Invisible Touch, which ends up having hits such as the title track, Invisible Touch, and one of my personal favorite songs, Land of Confusion.
I
As
like
much
that
as
song too. Yes.
Yeah, as much as those are pop songs, the instrumental foundation is still very progressive. I doubt like, any person can just pick up an instrument and, be able to play Land of Confusion. So it's pop music, but by people who very much know like how to play the instrument and how to really go to the next level. And like I said, hey, the Brazilian is I'm not crazy about it, but I respect it in that it showed that, even though even though the band was kind of moved in this way in terms of being more of a pop group, and Phil was definitely developing into being more of a pop artist.
Yeah.
They still knew how to like emphasize their progressive rock foundations. So
Well, I
um,
think people. First of all, there is a song on that album. It's track number 6 called Domino. It's
mhm.
and it's 10:45, 10 minutes and 45. So they're definitely doing still, still that, but still artsy uh, uh, leanings, if you want to say. I've never really used that word in conversation, leanings, but I've read about it. Um, I would say that, like, maybe if somebody heard In Too Deep, they would actually think it's just Phil Collins, even though I think it's the other way around. Because on Phil Collins, I guess his most popular CD is the Jacket one.
Yeah, no jacket required. Yeah.
Yeah, if people listen to that, I think I've heard this criticism that there's a really cheesy ballad on there called uh, One More Night. I think
Yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
that people think One More Night is a Genesis song. um,
Yeah.
and
I
it's,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I think the thing is that during the 80s, like Phil Collins' success as a solo artist and the success that Genesis was having at that time was so kind of symbiotic that it was easy to forget. It was easy to forget where one started and the other ended. In fact, if I remember, if what I've heard is true, it's like during the 80s, it wasn't surprising that, sometimes radio DJs would like say stuff like, well, here's a song by Phil Collins and Genesis, completely forgetting that
Yeah.
Genesis, you know, they're not his backing guy. They're all their unit, So,
Well, I read
um,
online about
mhm,
Police, the band The Police. I read
yeah,
about their last album, Synchronicity. I read somewhere online that someone said, "Oh, that's Sting and their backing band," and his
yeah,
backing band. Yeah,
yeah, and I guess situations like these can kind of hurt a band and stuff like that. Thankfully for the most part, Genesis was still cool. Like, I think it helps that, like, unlike so many other groups that end up in this situation where like one person goes solo and stuff like that, and the others kind of just do whatever. Genesis back in the 80s, like when Phil Collins was going solo, the other members were also kind of doing their own
yeah.
thing.
Mike Rutherford did Mike and the Mechanics.
Yes, yes. So, and yeah, when you do that, when thankfully you're smart enough to do that, it makes it that any kind of tension just doesn't exist. There isn't some ego. There isn't well, I'm not getting to play my songs, and you're hogging all the other stuff. So yeah, good on Genesis for being like one of the few bands that was able to avoid that. Hey, all up to those guys. I mean, yes,
You think they
eventually.
left on good terms?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, Phil Collins would end up leaving Genesis, but that was only back in '96. If what I've heard is true. That was only because he was just at a point where he just wanted to focus more on his solo career, which was still quite a thing. I mean, Phil Collins would literally begin the next decade becoming an Academy Award winning singer, songwriter, with winning an Oscar for Best Original Song with "You'll Be in My Heart," which, Tarzan, one of the greatest movies of all time, one of the greatest songs of all time, like, and anyone who tells me differently, I will not listen to. But yeah. Phil Collins and his talent, whether it was as a solo artist or being with Genesis, it's completely unquestionable.
Well, so you listened to the Brazilian. You said you respect that. I
Yeah,
don't have the other songs available. I could sit here and think of it, but luckily I have the document that we have, and I'm sure you have it too, or
yeah,
you have the.
yes. And right after that, there is Lucy Dacus.
Oh yeah, that's for me. Um,
Dacus?
That was for me. So basically, what happened was when he recommended that Lucy Dawkins, and Chris and his girlfriend, um, I think, have seen them in concert. I think they said that there was a New Year's concert that they were going to see, and he's probably going to say something on StreamYard. What's the latest? Oh, the latest was that he said one, um, which was hi guys,
Right.
um,
Yeah,
and so anyway, he recommended that song for me, um, and I recommended the Brazilian. He didn't like it,
yeah,
and he immediately asked me to recommend him another song,
yeah.
but
And
But the
it's
song that he recommended me was "In the Air Tonight," by Lucy Dawkins, which is a theme because Genesis and Phil Collins, and "In the Air Tonight" is from Collins' first studio album as a solo artist, and it's actually the first track on that CD. And I like the original version. The Lucy Dawkins was cool. Obviously, I don't know. She didn't the drum part that Mike Tyson likes, um, referencing um, the the movie with I just had it in my
the
head.
hangover. The hangover. You're thinking
The
of the hangover.
Hangover.
Yeah.
I just saw it on TV.
Mhm.
Anyway, um, I she didn't maybe she didn't try to replicate the famous drum part, but uh, it was okay. Um,
Yeah. y-
and what did
Yeah.
you think?
And I know Chris has said that he'll delve more into Lucy another time. Oh yeah, I thought it was a fair cover. I mean, it definitely tries to like capture the eerie vibe of the original, for better or for worse. The problem with trying to be so similar to the original is that you kind of end up running into a problem where a person may just think, well, why am I not just listening to the original right now? But Lucy has a nice voice. It's not it. She does. I don't think she comes off as weary as Phil does, but it's definitely a bit of a creepy feel. And as for the drum pattern, I hardly expect any drummer to be on the level Phil of Phil Collins, of the great progressive band Genesis, who let me know, like even when Phil transitioned from making prog rock music into making pop music, he was still like mastering those drums. And yeah, that'll be like, not trying to say he's like Neil Hard, rest in peace. But yeah, it's definitely hard to replicate, and which is especially golden when that drum part the is one of the most memorable parts of like the song. I don't know.
It's the
Like,
most. It's one of the most memorable drums, I think, in. history of music. It's
Mhm.
it's iconic. That part when it comes in is iconic. I did want to say briefly, rest in peace to Neil Peart.
Yeah,
We lost
yeah,
him, the
yeah.
drummer, iconic drummer of Rush. Um,
Mhm.
and there's like three or four drummers that I can think of that most people name as their favorite drummer. One being Keith Moon, who was, by the way, Neil Peart's hero. I read a little story on Rolling Stone that Neil Peart, they what when he was in school, he was banging on his desk, and his teacher put him in detention, and for his punishment, which was probably the best punishment he could have, he had to drum on the desk for a whole hour, and so he replicated uh, some I guess most of the Who's Tommy on the drum, on the desk. That's not an instrument, but anyway, that was his punishment, and he probably said to himself throughout his career, "Thank you to that teacher for giving me that punishment because that's what helped him become the drummer he was." So, like I said, there's like three or four drummers when people say their favorite drummer: Neil Peart, Keith Moon, maybe Ringo Starr, and so, but definitely rest in peace. My favorite drum section in a Rush song is the beginning of Tom Sawyer. That's an iconic. That's a pretty iconic drum, and that's what starts off the song. So, rest in peace. What are your thoughts on Neil Peart?
Well, even though I never became like a deep Rush fan, their influence and just knowing the scope of like how they pretty much influenced so many bands that I love was never lost on me. I mean, I'm in a weird position where like this like I like their cheesy 80s stuff more than like their epic songs how do you feel about their songs Time Stands Still?
I've never heard that song.
Oh, wait, it's usually considered like one of their more like cheesy romantic ballad songs. That's usually kind of considered like when like Rush was getting too synthy, and the songs were getting
I
shorter.
believe that started basically with the album Power Windows.
Yeah, either that or the album Permanent Waves. I love Time Stands Still so much. It's just it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful song. I mean, and Amy Mann, who we were just speaking about a few minutes ago, is she sings the background vocals on that, and she's wonderful on that song. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
she actually became really popular once she started her solo career. Till Tuesday
Yeah.
almost had basically, I think, three studio albums.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and so they're from Boston. Um,
Mhm.
and I remember her being on Conan one time, late night show performing, and that's where she hit her stride. So
Uh, yeah. I mean, till Tuesday, till Tuesday, mainly, like, I think among the general audience, they're probably more well known for their first album, which is completely lost on me right now. But
I
that
think it's
has,
Voices Carry.
yeah, it has Voices Carry. Yeah, is
That's the
Voices
name of
Carry?
the album. Yeah.
Yeah. Voices Carry is the name of the album, and yeah, Voices Carry, which is like this huge sensation of a hit, and it's funny because it's so the songs on that album are so indicative of the '80s and synth pop and all of that stuff, and it's quite legendary. But then you listen to their second, then come their second and third album, they completely move away from the whole synth pop thing, and they're just more of an earnest rock band,
Do they
And
move toward the sound that she started when she became solo?
yeah, which is more of a general kind of folksy alt rock thing, you know.
Singer songwriter too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll have to Google the name of the Till Tuesday's final album, which
I can bring it up on iTunes as well.
which I do not have I do not have an iTunes, but
Do you know? I mean, have you ever used iTunes before?
not really. I'm honest these
Because I
days I
have
tend.
some iTunes questions. I'm gonna have to. I know Chris told me that he can talk to me about it.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do that on another episode. But Till Tuesday did. That says they have their greatest hits. Voices
Yeah.
Carry was their first album in 1985, which is the year after um, I was born. That shows my age. And then in 86, they released an album called Welcome Home. And in 1988, they released Everything's Different Now.
Yes, and everything's okay. While I can't say I've dug too deep into their final album, everything's deeper now. It does have one song that I'm quite fond of, which is "The Other End of the Telescope," which is a song that that Amy Mann wrote alongside with a certain who he's credited as the clan Mockmanus, but we probably know him better by his stage name, Elvis Costello.
Huh.
Yes, and it's a lovely song that you could definitely tell that like Elvis Costello helped co-write it because it's this very, it's a song about a breakup and basically how like at the end of the day when you break up with someone, one person is going to feel more hurt about it than the other does. But but the lyrics are just so literate and they're just so many very clever lyrics that stick with you. I mean, the chorus literally goes, I know it didn't mean anything to you, but it sure meant a lot to me. And yeah, I don't know, just the way she sings it, it's quite smooth. Like someone who's still trying to process this, but also trying to move on from it. Funny enough, Elvis Costello, I know of this song because Elvis Costello would end up covering the song on the song, I believe it's called on the album All This Useless Beauty. And I don't
All
know.
the Useless Beauty.
Yes, All This Useless Beauty, which is the final album ever credited as an outing between him and his old band, The Attractions. And I really like both versions. Elvis's version is way more passionate. Like you can tell, like he's really kind of trying to sell that he's like so broken up over waking up with this person. Even changes a few lyrics here and there, but it's
Well, yes, this is
yeah,
correct. This is all correct. I mean, I wasn't doubting you, but
yeah,
actually, first of all, that song is on their greatest hits till Tuesday,
awesome.
and then on their the album All This Useless Beauty, it does say under iTunes review that The Other End of the Telescope, a tune co-written with Amy Mann.
Mhm.
So. It doesn't say anything, but I'm sure I know you're correct about it being their last album. Um, and it says it says songs co-written with others, Amy Mann and Paul McCartney. So he
Yeah.
did a song on that album too. So
Yeah, and so and every I haven't really, but I don't know. One of these days, I'll try to get more into till Tuesday's general work outside of just really liking voices carry and liking the other end of the telescope. But yeah, I have been familiar with Amy Mann's work in general. I think I think around either 2011 or 2012, she ended up releasing an album that I thought was kind of cool called The Charmer, no, or just Charmer. And there was one song that I thought was really cool. It's called Labrador. And I only knew about that song because the music video that was done, which not only features a cameo from a Mr. John Hamm, Mad Men fans who probably love him, John Hamm, literally probably one of the most handsomest actors working together. But
he was also in Baby Driver.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. But Labrador is funny because it's literally a reenactment of the Voices Carry video.
I've never seen that video.
Oh, okay. Well, it's I don't know. Well, the Voices Carry video, which is it's very much a product of its time in terms of
I'm looking at their haircuts on the
Yeah.
front of the first album. And she's got blonde hair, and it's
Mhm.
like they weren't a hair band, but they definitely looked the times.
Yeah, it was the 80s. It was the 80s. Everybody had that ridiculous hair.
Yeah,
Few people were ever really able to make hair work in back then, except maybe Prince. Prince's hair looks amazing in the 80s, and it would have looked amazing now.
yeah.
But
Well, let's move on to the other song that Chris that I recommended, because, like I said, when I recommended the Brazilian to Chris, he said, "Oh, he gave you okay, cool. He gave you permission to write on this." But anyway, and I didn't see that. Okay, so when I recommended the Brazilian to Chris, he didn't like it, and he told me, I don't know why, but he told me to recommend another song afterwards. Um, and and so I recommended Baker Street cover from Foo Fighters.
yes.
And we're finally going to talk about it, except Chris is not going to talk about it. You are. Chris couldn't find it in his streaming endeavors, which I don't do. I don't stream. I use iTunes, and I have physical albums. But it, it Chris has a review on this document, but I'm not going to read it. I'll let you just tell your opinion on it, and I can tell my opinion too after you do your opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It wasn't.
You were able to find it on your streaming.
Well, I just listened to it through the YouTube link that I got.
Well,
which,
share it with Chris so he can listen to it. Oh, I see it on this document.
Yeah. In fact, if not, just sending him the same YouTube link he sent me. I mean, I can try to see if it's available.
He has permission for this. Is the document he created, so he can. Oh, actually, I created it, but I gave control over to him because I wanted him to do this, so he can watch the video. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a fine song. I mean, it definitely it definitely kind of fits alongside with the color and shape era of the Foo Fighters, where like they were where you know color and shape is interesting in that it was the Foo Fighters' first album as a band, as like a legit band, because I
Yeah,
believe as anyone will tell you, their first album is literally just um Dave Grohl playing
he
every
did most of
instrument.
the instruments, but I think a guy named William Goldsmith did some of the instruments too.
Yeah, William Goldsmith and I believe Greg Dully, so I always saw it. I always see a lot of these songs as like as them just kind of trying to figure out the kinks of how well they work with each other. I don't like to be a yeah, I don't really feel that like it's a neat cover. I don't really feel any two ways about it. Though I will though but you do definitely get that feeling of like a band kind of coming together and like figuring out how well they work alongside with each other. And and it the funny thing about the color and the shape is that it was as good of an album as it is, and often considered their best album among fans. It was made at such a contentious time because once again it was their first like real album together, and they were working, and that was produced by Gil Norton, who from
Yes,
what I've heard was like such a hard person to work with, and
he was
such a
what?
he was a very hard person to work with
Oh, really?
as a producer. Like, he was kind of like apparently with the rhythm section, nothing could really work with nothing that they were doing was really working with him.
So
And
I
somewhat
looked up the word contentious because I've heard the word before, and it says adjective tending to argument or strife, quarrelsome. So he was a pretty what would you say? He was a hard headed guy.
yeah, more that he was a guy which like if which like if he was not afraid to like let the band know if something didn't work. Like and like I said, especially with the rhythm section with the basses and the drummer, like he was not impressed with them at all. In fact, from what I've heard, he used to call them the rhythmless section.
Oh no.
And yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. And in fact, one as people have mentioned, the drummer, the like original drummer for the Foo Fighters, he would end up leaving due to a disagreement between Dave and him,
So
where
this
like
was before Taylor Hawkins.
yes, where apparently before Taylor Hawkins, apparently the original drummer, like apparently none of the drumming tracks that he did were to Dave's liking, so he ended up re-recording the drum tracks by himself, and he was like, hey, hey, I all the drums on this album are now being played by me, but I still want you to be in the band. Maybe we could just do a thing where I do the drums on the album and you kind of just tour with me, and can we work that out? And apparently the drummer was like, no, absolutely not. Like, how dare you? I worked hard on those drum tracks, and I think now in retrospect, like Dave has been able to admit that he made a bad decision by doing that. But
Mhm.
but yeah, when I say it was a contentious time making that album, there you go.
Well,
But yeah,
I'm
no.
reading a little bit about it on their biography on iTunes.
Mhm.
But let me I think I did mention my and by the way, we have about 25 more minutes.
Mhm.
or actually 15 more minutes. We're going to end up at 5:25. We're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
So let's get these rest of these songs in here. Chris didn't mention the last song. Oh, he did, yeah. And I have to do one too. Okay, and he mentioned that one too. Okay, so my opinion, I think I mentioned this, but I'll mention it one more time. Baker Street, I love it. It's one of my favorite covers of all time. Um, and I like the original version by Jerry Rafferty,
Mhm.
and it's a Jerry with a G. Um,
Okay.
I'm kind of interested in names when they're spelled a little different than we normally know. Um, and but anyway, Jerry Rafferty's is good. Is good. It's on my iPod. It's good. I don't like using the word good, but that's all I can think of is good. But yeah, that was supposed to sound like the Budweiser commercial. Um, but staying on subject, it's good. But I think the Foo Fighters kick it out. I don't know if this is a real expression. Blow it out of the water, kick it out of the water. No disrespect again to Jerry Rafferty, but it's just I remember like 2 years ago, I had that song in my head and I kept singing it. My brother kept getting annoyed. I know he was. I know he was annoyed, but I would sing it as much for about 2 weeks. I just had that song in my brain, and it's a wonderful cover song. So that's my opinion. The very next the next song is a Christmas song, but we're not talking about the Christmas songs we recommended. We're going to go on to Tristeza, which I meant. That's the name of the group, and I recommended this for Chris. It's a song called Macrame, and I believe it's under the genre called post rock, which I don't know much about. Um, I know some other groups that are under that category, but I want to hear your opinion about the song Macrame.
Yes, I was lucky enough to listen to it. I quite like it. You know, it definitely kind of falls in line with what I kind of expect from post rock bands. Reminded me a bit of Battles, like a more calmed down
Who?
band. Battles.
Battles.
Yeah.
I've never heard
Um,
of that group.
uh,
Do they have any popular songs?
I think the song that got me into them was a song called Ice Cream. Yeah, you know that song from there that I always recommend. But yeah, you know but you know the guitars are light, yet there's so much going on with them. And it definitely falls into what I've come to expect from the post rock sound, where like you know it's like where it's a more kind of ambient version of what we kind of expect rock to be, and at the same time so much is going on. It's very you know it's very progressive, I'll
Yeah,
say that. But I like it. I like it. I'll have to listen more to it, listen more to them in general. But you know, sounds it was a really fun song to listen to.
I think I've heard math rock as a term labeled to that. I did not excel in math in school, so I'm not sure what that means. One of another band that I've heard that I know of with post rock is called Tortoise.
Hmm.
And then another one, I can't remember the name right now. But let's move on to the next song because we have 10 minutes. The last song is this is actually what I recommended to him, and then we have one other song, which is one that he recommended to me, but I want to hear your opinion of a song that I recommended from Ratatat, and it's a song called Tropicana. And Chris mentioned that in the last episode that Ratatat also worked with Kid Cudi. But have you had a chance? Did you have a chance to listen to Tropicana?
Yes, I liked it. I really, really liked it. I see myself listening to it again. It sounded wonderful. It's kind of like like Macrame, the last song we were talking about, in that, it's kind of, the guitars are kind of light and a bit flighty, but, true to its name, there's this somewhat of a this tropical motif going in, but it's not afraid, to like kind of get a bit hard and rock hard when it wants to, and when it does, it sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
Doesn't it kind of have a little Beatles sound to it a little bit, or am I wrong?
Honestly, you could say that. You could say that. You wouldn't be completely wrong in saying that.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, doesn't really go. I don't know how often the Beatles would go hard on a song, with the exception of Helter Skelter, I guess. But yeah, 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 yeah. It was, but yeah, I could see that. Honestly, I'd say less the Beatles, and more of a Brazilian, more of a. It reminds me more of a Brazilian psych rock band that I'm quite known of. Have you ever heard of a band called Os Mutantes?
Can't say I have.
Well, well, back in like the 60s and 70s, they were very well known in Brazil. But yeah,
How
yeah,
do you spell that second word? Post what?
post rock, post rock.
What's that's the name of the band?
No, no, no. Oh, you mean the name Os Mutantes, Os Mutantes, which is
How do you spell that second word?
Mutantes. Think of mutants, but instead of ANTS, just TES. Os Mutantes. It means the mutants in Portuguese.
Okay, so the first word is post, P-O-S-T.
No, 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 no. The first word is os, os.
Oh, yeah. I have never heard of that group. I'm going to check them out on iTunes later, but they're not even O as in Oscar, S as in Shirley.
Yes, yes, yes. In fact, let me write it down for you right now.
And it's M-U-T-E-S.
Yeah, os mutantes.
Okay. I'm not seeing that, but not even as a search. I have Oscar Peterson, Oscar Cortez, Ozzy Osbourne. So the next song is one that he recommended me, and we're coming up in about 5 more minutes, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up. But the last song, and maybe I guess we'll end on this song, and then we finally got the songs. We still haven't gotten Chris's opinions on air, but the last song is called "Thank You." It's called "Mr. Invisible" by Thank You Scientist, and I did listen to it. I did my homework. Mr. Invisible. It's Thank You Scientist. I read a little bit about them, and I think they were on the label to Claudio, that Cambridge and Coheed and Cambria.
Yes, yes, yes.
But anyway, it was a good song. I'm not going to say I'm not going to put it on my. I'm not going to buy it or anything. But it was a progressive feel. We started talking about progressive. Now we're ending it. So it's got a progressive feel. I know they're kind of a progressive group. it mentioned in their biography that their influences ranged from the Beatles to Frank Zappa, which is pretty eclectic. So yeah, I liked it, but I wouldn't put it on my iPod. That's
Well,
that's
I've had moments in sharing music with Chris myself. I can definitely attest to his affinity with this band. You know, they're definitely a band that in the times I've hung out with, I've been blessed to hang out with him. He has played them quite a few times, and I definitely see like the appeal that they have. Like, you know, much like Cookhead and Cambria, and all the other kind of bands that we've been talking about, they're one of those groups where like so much is going on in terms of like the guitars and stuff like that. They're much like Cookhead. I love the vocals. I love the vocals. It's passionate, it's a bit passionate, it's a bit soulful, and you kind of just get the feeling that dude is just having so much fun, just singing along to these wild melodies. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm the biggest fan, but I can see the appeal.
I start when I. It's been a little while since I listened to it, but when I started listening to it, I thought it was just going to be an instrumental song because he knows I like instrumental music, but yeah, I mean, I like that they are inspired by the Beatles and Frank Zappa, and I can't remember the other group. Let me look that up real quick. It said that they were I keep calling them something else, but Thank You Scientist. I think they met in college. And Thank You Scientist is bringing up some weird other covers of. Okay. So Frank Zappa, I've definitely heard about this artist, this group, Maha Vishnu. I've never said it out loud before, so I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Maha Vishnu Orchestra.
Is that okay? And is that just general recommendations you're
No,
finding?
it says the three shared a love for Frank Zappa, Mahavishnu Orchestra, the Beatles, and Harry Nilsson.
Okay.
The song, I know Harry hung out with George Harrison, and Harry Nilsson was the original original author of the song, I believe, One, that Three Dog Night covered.
Oh yes.
They all. My introduction to Harry Nilsson was through the song "Coconut," which is a strange. I don't know if it was a novelty song, but we have one more minute. I did want to say thank you for coming on the episode. You are definitely as advertised. You are very knowledgeable about music, my friend.
Uh,
And
thank you so much for having me be here. I have been dying to be a guest on this lovely show, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun to kind of just talk what we could about all the crazy things in the musical.
we were eclectic, I would say.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we one thing other than just the last song, we did not get the chance to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. But hopefully we can do that some other. Hopefully we can do that some other time.
At least we got in the rest in peace to Neil Peart.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so, and I will check out your group, O's
Os Mutantes. I'll send you I'll also send you a link to a song to a song that I quite like from those guys. Wait, Chris wants us to mention to finish the show after the discussion on thank you scientists, which well we kind of have. But yeah, in general, we both really like the thank you scientist song. I like you like the progressive and Beatles influence of it. I love the very passionate vocals that, in my opinion, fits well with the very wildness of the instruments. But yeah, and once again, Michael, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. I had so much fun. I would love to be back again, and hopefully when I'm back, Chris will be able to be here with us, and all three of us can kind of just talk to talk, But
Well, we
once,
definitely look forward to it, and thank you
yeah,
for coming on. And it's been a blast. So that is all the time we have for now. And thanks for listening. And Godspeed.
Godspeed indeed.